Dale Morgan had long stopped believing in miracles. At 34, he was a single father scraping by in a dusty roadside town that most people only saw from their car windows. After losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago, Dale had poured every ounce of strength into raising his 8-year-old daughter, Sophie, while working double shifts as a mechanic and keeping up payments on a rundown gas station on the outskirts of town, an inheritance from his father that most considered a curse more than a blessing. The pumps barely worked, the garage roof leaked when it rained, and the occasional customer came not for fuel, but to ask for directions or use the restroom. Yet Dale clung to it not for what it was, but for what it used to be, a symbol of his family's legacy and the only stability his daughter knew. Life was a dull loop of oil changes and overdue bills until the day she walked in Mara Jameson. She wasn't from town, and it showed. The people of Ash Hollow whispered about her behind backs, calling her the ghost bride because she wore black every day and avoided eye contact. Her past was a mystery, her reputation tangled in town, gossip about betrayal, poverty, and rumors of a child taken from her. She rented the cabin next to Dale's property, and though she barely spoke to anyone, she always made sure to leave food out for the stray cats that lingered near the gas station. Dale noticed her not just because she was different, but because she seemed as invisible as he sometimes felt. One day, as the summer sun scorched the cracked earth around the station, Mara walked in asking for work, not for money, but simply something to do. She offered to clean the shop, organize the shelves, and fix the broken neon sign that had hung dead for years. "I just need a second chance," she said, her voice trembling but firm. Against his instincts and the warnings of half the town, Dale said yes. That simple decision would change both their lives. Over the next few weeks, the station began to transform. With Mara's quiet persistence, the windows were cleaned, the restrooms restored, and the ancient storage rooms cleared out. Sophie, who had been guarded since her mother's death, warmed to Mara's calm nature and soft laughter. Dale watched from a distance, unsure whether to feel relieved or terrified. Something about Mara was magnetic, but mysterious. She had scars, not all visible, but instead of pushing people away, she built trust slowly, like tending a fire from embers. One late evening, Dale found Mara in the back room holding a dusty blueprint rolled in a cracked leather case. "This was wedged behind the water heater," she said, brushing off the dust. Dale unrolled it and stared in disbelief. It was an original site layout from 1942. Back when the station was a refueling point for military convoys during the war, there was a section marked Private Reserves Confidential Access Only. A chill ran through Dale. He had spent half his life in that station and never seen this. Curiosity turned into obsession. With Mara and Sophie's help, Dale began to dig beneath the old concrete slab behind the garage, where the blueprint indicated a forgotten cellar. After days of effort, they unearthed a rusted metal hatch bolted shut. It took another week to pry it open, and what they discovered would shake the very bones of their past. The hatch led to an underground vault, lined with steel walls and guarded by decades of silence. Inside were dozens of locked crates, sealed and stamped with government insig. It took time, patience, and more courage than Dale ever thought he had. But eventually one of the crates gave way. Inside, stacks of uncirculated bills, U.S. currency, dated and bundled from the 1950s, preserved perfectly. Alongside them were wartime documents, gold bars, and military artifacts. They realized they were standing on top of a forgotten government storage site, one that had somehow been erased from the records. Dale sat down in stunned silence, the numbers swirling in his head. It was easily over $200 million in rare assets and currency, all hidden beneath what the town called a junk station. But before they could celebrate, the lights flickered, and a shadow crossed the hatch entrance. Someone else had found out. Dale's body froze as the shadow above the hatch shifted and a voice called out, low and gruff, "Didn't think anyone still came back here." The man stepped forward, a stranger dressed like he belonged to no time at all, military boots, a weathered coat, and eyes too alert for someone just passing through. Mara instinctively moved in front of Sophie, pulling her close. Stood, shielding them both, heart pounding like a war drum. "Can I help you?" Dale asked, voice calm but coiled like a spring. No, the man said, eyes flicking to the open crate filled with old currency, but I think you just helped me. Over the next hour, tension cracked through the air like lightning. The man introduced himself as Leonard Cray said he was, an independent researcher, but had the posture of a trained operative. He claimed to have been tracking that vault for decades, ever since his grandfather served at the very outpost now buried under Dale's gas station. Cray told them this wasn't just money, it was a black budget reserve, never recorded, meant for off-the-books wartime emergencies. Technically, he said with a smirk, it doesn't exist, which means anyone who finds it has something very powerful and very dangerous. Dale didn't trust him. Neither did Mara. They agreed not to tell anyone, especially not the townspeople, would surely report it, or worse, try to steal it. That night, Mara and Dale sat on the gas station roof, the vault closed and buried again, sealed beneath layers of dirt and old lies. What do we do? Dale whispered. Mara looked at him for a long moment before replying, we protect it. For greed. For Sophie. For us. For the future they never wanted people like us to have. Over the following weeks, Dale and Mara made a pact to guard the secret, use only what they needed, and keep the vault hidden from the world. Quietly, they paid off debts, fixed the roof, installed new pumps, replaced the rusted signs with fresh paint and pride. Mara opened a small food truck beside the station, cooking meals that brought locals out of their silence and softened old suspicions. Sophie laughed more. She called Mara Mom for the first time one windy Tuesday afternoon, and Mara cried behind the grill, hands shaking over a pot of stew. But secrets never stay buried. Cray returned, this time with 2 men in black SUVs and smiles that didn't reach their eyes. I thought we could share, Cray said, walking into the garage as Dale fixed a carburetor. But now, I think it's time you gave me what's mine. Dale refused. A scuffle followed, words turned to fists, and metal rang against metal. Mara stepped in with a fire extinguisher, blasting the men with foam and fury. Cray stumbled, slipped on oil, and cracked his head on the concrete. The others fled. Sirens wailed in the distance. Someone had called the cops. Dale didn't. Mara didn't. Someone else had been watching. Cray survived but left town. Quietly, after a state investigation into trespassing and attempted robbery concluded with no charges. The vault remained untouched, still hidden. Now, Dale and Mara knew something even greater. The station was never just a station. It was their fortress, their home, their miracle. They married that fall under a willow tree near the station, with Sophie throwing flower petals and wearing a dress stitched from her late mother's shawl, and Mara's jacket lining. The townspeople came, not all, but enough to show the whispers had changed. Dale wasn't just the widowed mechanic anymore. Mara wasn't the outcast. They were a family, and the station that once symbolized loneliness now stood tall as a beacon of resilience. Dale used some of the hidden money to build scholarships for kids like Sophie, quiet ones overlooked. Mara started a shelter for women. With nowhere else to go, every act they did came not from greed, but from gratitude. They never revealed the vault. They didn't need to. What mattered most had already been unearthed. Trust, healing, and the kind of love that digs through decades of dust to find the gold in each other's hearts. And as the sun set behind the rebuilt gas station, its neon light now glowing with a warm hum, Sophie filmed her parents laughing, kissing, and holding hands. She uploaded the video with the title, "My Dad Married an Outcast and Found $200 million, but that's not even the best part." It went viral, and if you're watching this story now, maybe it's because you needed to believe again. And second, chances in people rising from the ashes. In the idea that even the most broken places can hide treasure if you just look close enough.